He sings the song, Go Rest High on That Mountain, which has helped many people deal with loss. With 22 Grammys and a place among the most prestigious names in country music, Vince Gill built his reputation on being honest, humble, and kind. But not many people know about the private fights he's been through, the tragedies that have shaped his music, or the choices he's made that have shocked even his biggest fans. What he just said adds a new dimension to a career marked by quiet strength and unwavering dedication. Getting through loss, the quiet tragedy that changed him. Vince Gill was only 11 years old in 1968 and was happy living a simple life in Norman, Oklahoma. The only things that made up his days were school, family meals, and playing his little four-string tenor guitar. As a federal judge and amateur singer, his father, J. Stanley Gill, often played with him, which sparked the boy's early interest in music. Up until he got that terrible phone call, Vince's life was based on the unspoken rhythms of a close-knit family. Bob Cohen, his older half-brother, had been in a car crash. The injuries were terrible. Bob went into a deep sleep that would last for 3 painful months. Vince had always looked up to his lively and free-spirited brother, but the hospital turned into a scary, still place for him. Bob wasn't the same when he finally woke up. He will always have serious brain damage from the accident. He couldn't talk, take care of himself, or connect with the world in any real way. The boy who used to laugh, tease, and get into trouble as he ran through fields with Vince was gone, replaced by a copy of himself who was locked inside a body that wasn't moving. For young Vince, this wasn't just a loss, it was a break in the mental chain of his family. His parents, especially his mother, were trying to deal with their grief while trying to accept that he was no longer there. This left a scar on him that would never go away. For the next 25 years, Bob stayed in this state. Since he died in 1993, Vince was already a well-known artist. In the same year, Vince put out the heavy-hearted Christmas record, Let There Be Peace on Earth. It Won't Be the Same. This year was one of his songs that really showed how sad he was. The song showed how painful it is to miss someone you loved who is now dead or who died a long time ago. Vince has talked about that time a lot in interviews, saying things like, "Every time I sing that song, I see that 11-year-old boy again." Not only did that disaster shape his childhood, it also shaped his soul, made his voice so soft, and added a depth to his songs that fame and money could never make up. Giving up on the dream of a lifetime and walking away. Vince Gill was known in Nashville studios by the end of the 1980s, but he wasn't a star yet. He sang harmony and played guitar for Pure Prairie League, and for a while he was the lead singer of the band. But his solo work wasn't quite ready to go yet. Gill signed with RCA Records and put out 2 albums called The Things That Matter and The Way Back Home. The music was good, but neither record did very well in the sales charts. His voice was praised by critics. His fellow musicians said he was one of the best guitar players in the area, but the scores didn't change. He was in danger of becoming just another almost famous story in a city that loved hits. Mark Knopfler, the famous lead singer of Dire Straits, called Vince Gill and asked him to join the band. This would tempt even the most grounded artist. Dire Straits was one of the most famous rock bands in the world at the time. Brothers in Arms and Stadium shows that sold out in hours made them famous all over the world. Knopfler had always admired Gill's skill as a singer, especially the way he played the guitar and how honest his voice was. The invite wasn't just for a meeting, it was to become a full member. By any measure, it was a golden ticket. Crossover fame, crowds in Europe, stadium stages. Vince didn't say yes right away, like most artists would have, but he thought about it. After that, he said no. In a later conversation, Gill talked about how important that choice was. "I loved what they did, don't get me wrong. I knew I couldn't go back to that road after going down it, though. I would no longer be myself. I wished to share my tales. That wasn't something I had done yet. It wasn't just a career risk that I turned it down. It was about being alive." He kept having doubts about himself for years afterward, especially during tough times. It would have helped to have the money. The fame would have helped them get jobs. A lot of the time, he played small venues, took long tour buses, and stood backstage at shows he opened for bigger acts. That is until Vince launched When I Call Your Name at what can only be called the perfect time. It's not enough that the record did well, became an important event in country music. The title track was a soft, painful ballad that showed all of Gil's pain and shame in her singing. That was the end of his long risk, but it paid off when he won his first Grammy and became famous. He didn't follow the easy way to become famous right away. He made his own way. He said, looking back, the choice to leave bad situations wasn't just about my career, it was about being honest with myself. I'd rather be myself in a small club than someone else in a huge venue that's full. Loving loudly, a shocking relationship that didn't go as planned. Christmas with Vince Gill was a TV show that tried to combine country warmth with holiday cheer. It was filmed in Tulsa in December 1993. They had a special guest planned, Amy Grant, who is the queen of Christian pop. Star power came from just being there, but when she walked into the practice room, everything changed. Vince noticed her right away. Her stress was clear, she was tense from traveling a lot and feeling the pressure of always being watched by the public. Vince, who was always kind, broke the ice with a smile and a line she would never forget. "Hey, take that head off. Everything will be fine." It was easy, but it hit her. It wasn't flirting, it was kindness. That night they played together without any problems. It sounded like they had been singing together their whole lives because their voices mixed so well. There was only going to be one show, one song, and one moment. But that moment planted something that was clear, but not overt. They ran into each other again at more holiday events over the next few years. Then Amy asked Vince to sing with her on a song for her new record. House of Love was the name of the song, and even though the lyrics were about love, there was a real story going on behind the words. Vince and Amy were both married at the time. They were in the country band Sweethearts of the Rodeo together, and had been together for more than 10 years. They had a girl together named Jenny. Gay singer Amy Chapman was married to Gary Chapman. Under the surface, both groups were having a hard time. Vince had gotten farther away from Janice because of his busy tour schedule and his own desire for a deeper emotional connection. Amy, on the other hand, was going through a rough marriage full of mental stress and fights that no one outside of their home could really understand. Even though there were sparks between them, both Vince and Amy said their relationship was still polite. After the fact, Amy would say that we were two people trying to keep the promises we made. Still, it was clear that they were a good match, even to people nearby. Fans, reviewers, and tabloids all started to guess. By the late 1990s, the reports were getting worse. Vince and Janice split up in 1997. After 2 years, Amy and Gary broke up. People were confused by the time overlap, and the public story quickly turned into one of scandal. There was a lot of anger directed at Amy. She had made a name for herself as a Christian music star on beliefs that now seemed to be at odds with her personal life. Radio stations took her songs off the air. Letters were sent by angry former fans. Vince's opinion was less loud, but it hurt just as much. He later said that the worst thing was that people thought the worst of us when it wasn't true. We weren't careless, we were just people. For years, Vince and Amy carefully balanced their public and private lives. In March 2000, they finally got married. There were about 100 close family and friends at his home just outside of Nashville for the wedding, which took place under a pretty spring sky. It was personal and important. A lot of feelings. Amy wore a simple white dress, and Vince stood next to her. He wasn't a country star or a controversial figure. He was just a guy who had patiently and quietly waited for the right time. When Glenn Frey died in January 2016, the world lost not only the man, but also what his death meant. He stood tall, joined the Eagles, and faced the backlash. Frey did more than just help start the Eagles. As a creative leader, voice and personality, he had been an important part of the band since 1971. As Don Henley made it clear, "I don't see how we could play without the beginning of the band."